Hello, my crafty friends. Well, this is part 6 from the 2 journals from a Digi Kit series, and I'm sorry it's been so long getting to this one, but in the last one we selected papers for our signatures, and I just went ahead and sewed in the signatures so I could show you the finished book. Now it's not finished; I haven't done any embellishing, but these are the book is put together now. Um, and you can see it's lots of beautiful paper. Um, I'll just show you the signatures are all similar as to what's in them. We've got part of the Digi Kit, and this is just a dyed paper, and part of the Digi Kit, and this is one of my marbled papers, and Digi Kit page, and a coffee dyed page. And each signature has those 6 pieces of paper in it, and there are 6 signatures in this book. So it's a pretty big book, but it's got lots of room to expand, so we can add pockets and all kinds of stuff, and it'll still be good. And we'll do that. We'll start on that in the next video. But I wanted to make my signatures and put them in to this book. This is the second one that we're making from the same Digi Kit. And if you will remember, in this Digi Kit, these are ones that Tammy Porter printed off and sent to me. Like, she will print them off and send them to the artists. And so they are printed all the way to the edge. I didn't have that capability on my computer, and I wanted to show you what you could do with books if you don't have that capability. And that's why we're doing this one too. So this one is smaller because all the pages I had to trim them down to trim off the borders and that kind of thing. But what we're going to do first, before we worry about getting the signatures ready for it, is we're going to cover the back and cover the, this is where I'm going to sew my signatures into this, and then I'm going to glue it into the book. That way, this is what it'll look kind of like this, and you won't see any of the sewing on the back. That's called a hidden spine. So both of these books are going to have a hidden spine. So the first thing I'm going to do is just go ahead and glue this down, because we're going to need to punch holes in this, so it needs to have as much time to dry as it can. Let me get a piece of paper here that I can put the glue on this. You need if you're going to use a glue stick for this, you need to use a pretty good one, because you really want this to stick down well. You don't want there to be any doubts about it. If you don't know if you have a good glue stick, then my suggestion would be to use a white glue instead. Okay. Ooh, both sides of this are pretty. I think I'm going to use this side. Okay, now I want to put this in here kind of centered so I can glue around it. Okay, now we're just going to let that glue down really good there. Now on these edges, I think with the other book I did use my art glitter glue, and I think I'm going to go ahead and do that because I want the, well, let's fold these over so we know that they're going to fit snugly before we put our glue on there. You don't have to do it first, but it is easier. Okay, and we're going to trim the corners here. Okay, I'm going to fold up the ends as well. Okay, now then, I'm just going to run my glue, and I'm going to run it kind of right in the ditch. Well, Okay. I'm going to run the bead of glue right in that ditch just a little bit, and then a little bit right on here. And then I'm going to glue this one down. We're going to do them one at a time because this art glitter glue dries pretty quickly. And if you don't do it, you know, if I didn't push that down right away, some of it would be dry before I pushed it down, and that would make it, it wouldn't stick as well. So the nice thing about it is that it tacks quickly. The bad thing about it is that it tacks quickly. So if you know that about it, you can use it to your advantage. If you don't, it would be frustrating at first until you learn. Okay, so here's our piece. And what I'm going to use where it says cash right here, that's going to be the top. And if I remember that's the top all the time, then I won't have to worry about which way am I going when I'm sewing them in. So you have to either write in pencil so you can erase it, top, or put an arrow or something to remind yourself that this is the top, because you don't want to get it turned around when you're putting your signatures in, and then they don't match up well, and you come with all kinds of different problems. Okay, the next thing I want to do, I've got these two pieces here, and I cut them apart. They were both like this. So I cut them so that we can have both of them in here. And I had to trim them down a little bit more to fit the book. But that's what I'm going to do here. And they will just barely overlap each other. But so that way when I put this in there, you won't really notice that it's two different ones. Okay, so we're going to start, and you've got this right here where the book bends. So you need to be aware of that when you're gluing the paper in. Otherwise, it could cause problems later. So I'm going to think about that. And so in order to do that, I'm only going to put my glue on this board. I'm not going to put anything down here right now. And then after I get this on there really good, then I'll put the glue down here so that way I can tuck it in. And I am using the art glitter glue for this. You can use whatever kind of glue you like. But you do want something that really sticks well, and I want to go around the edges with this. And if you get the edges good, then you don't have to have as much in the middle. Okay. It's knocking stuff over right and left. Let's put that up. We don't have to worry about it. Okay. See, if I want you to be able to see, but I want to be able to see too, so. Okay. Oops. Now you want to really press that down good. I'm going to make sure it's really stuck well. You can use a bone folder. I'm just using my thumb, but anyway. Okay, now right here, I'm going to go back over that spot right there. And then I'm going to go in here and then down here a little bit. Okay, now then, I should have made sure I had my bone folder out here. Oh, okay. And you don't have to use a bone folder for this. You can use something else. But a bone folder is really good for it because it's not sharp, but it really pushes in well. Anything you can use a ruler, anything that won't cut the paper, but you can tuck it in really well. And you have to work it, make sure it's really glued down there. Okay, now then I'm going to come back and do the edge here. And this needs to be glued down really well because you're gluing your spine of your signatures to this. So this needs to be glued down really well. So don't scrimp right here thinking it doesn't matter since nobody's going to see it. It does matter. Okay. So there's that side. And we're going to do exactly the same thing. Make sure I put it in there right. Yeah, okay. Scared me for a second. You want to make sure it's right side up with your book. Like I said, you want to make sure you've got glue right on the edge because you want the edges down really tight. And I may have too much glue here and have to work some off. But that's okay. It's better to wipe off a little bit than to not have enough. And then in the middle, we'll just put, it doesn't need near as much. At least with our glitter glue, it doesn't need near as much in the middle. Okay. We want to really, you can use your bone folder for this too. Really make sure it's connected well all the way around. A bone folder is good for that. I use my hand most of the time though, because I just feel like I can feel that I've touched everywhere. Plus it's nice to touch your pretty papers. All right, now I got glue all over my fingers. It's not on the paper though. It's just what was already on my fingers. I'm just noticing it because I'm touching the paper. Okay. Now we're going to put some more glue right there at the edge of where that paper was. And then we're going to put some glue in the ditch. I hope that, whew, barely. Okay. I put them closer to the edge of the book than I did when I was measuring it out, so be careful. Okay. Now I'm going to really work this right here before I worry about the rest of it, because I want to make sure that it's down there really well. Okay. Now then, there's our book. And here's our center. Now I made this smaller. You'll notice it's quite a bit smaller, and that's because when you do this and when you do this, you don't want to encroach on it because it needs to set in the middle there. So that's all ready, and we're just going to let it sit and dry. Just like that. Okay. Set those papers aside to use on another project. And here are the papers that I have in my signatures. Let's go ahead and close this because we don't need it for a while. Okay, I have 6 different kinds of paper that I'm going to put in the signature, and it's similar to the ones that we did in this one. One page is going to be this marbled paper. One page is going to be dyed paper. So I have 2 blue and 2 purple. And I think I'm probably going to do them like this. Do the blue and the purple. And the purple and the blue. And the purple and the blue and the blue and the purple. Okay. So we've got, let me move this book out of the way. We have 4 signatures started here. And we're also going to do 2 that are coffee dyed and 2 that are avocado dyed. Actually, I think this is onion skin because it's lighter pink than the avocado. So 2 coffee dyed and 2 onion skin dyed papers. I don't know if you can tell the difference, but there is a little bit of difference. And I think I'm going to put onion skin with those blue dyed papers and coffee with the ones with the purple dyed papers. I don't know that there's any specific reason to use either one, but okay. Okay, save those last because I want to talk about them. These are some that we coffee dyed after we printed them off. Okay, so they're on the back, they're coffee dyed, and on the front, they're the print from the book. So we're going to put them, one of those in each one. And these are printed on a pretty heavy cream-colored paper. And it's a nice creamy paper, so I just left it like it is. So there's going to go one of those. Now I have to kind of be careful because I don't want to put 2 of the same thing in one signature. Oh, see? There we go. All right. And then I've got these that were white on the back. They're printed off on white paper, white copy paper. And then I had the onion skin one. That obviously didn't glue down. I had the printed on onion skin paper, and I just glued it to the back of the white copy paper. Now then, these are not, they didn't match up perfectly. So they will need to be trimmed a little bit. But I wanted to show them to you. So here's the, and there's where it's going to have to be trimmed a little bit. And the same thing on this one. It's going to have to be trimmed a little bit right there. But you can tell the difference in the what was printed on white paper and what was, this was a cream onion skin paper. This was the white paper. You can tell a little bit it's not a drastic difference, but there is a difference between the shades of the white and the blue. This was the onion skin paper, and this is white paper. So it does make a little bit of difference on your picture as well. That one actually lined up pretty nicely. So we won't worry about it. We will just stick it with this one. And this one has a little bit on the edge too. So these three, I'm going to trim just a tad, and then I'll be right back. Okay. So these are the 6 papers. Well, come on. And so now we want to kind of organize them. I think I want to put this one on the outside of each signature because it's a sturdier paper. So I think that'll be good. And then next to it, I think I'm going to put this one. You got to be careful with this marbled paper. It's a little bit, well, depending on the weight of the paper you use. The heavier weight paper is not quite as delicate as the plain old 20-pound copy paper. And then I do think I want this next to it because there is some of that turquoise color. So I think it looks pretty with it. And then we'll put another one of these. This is the one that's been glued together. Maybe not. Maybe I want this. Because these are both, I didn't think that through very well. I was thinking about different kinds of paper. I wasn't thinking about, okay, let's do it this way. No, I was thinking about it. See, I knew what I was doing. All right, we're going to put this one in. Here. Okay. So it'll be the coffee dyed on the back, and then the model paper, and then the blue or purple paper, and then the double paper, and then the the coffee dyed or onion skin dyed. And that's going to be our signature. So here's one. So let's build this one. Whoops. Okay, there's that one. And then this one will be next. This way. You want, if there's writing on it, you want it, well, at least I want it to be up right side up. So, oh no, it's not the same. It just has some of the same flowers on it, but it's not the same paper, so we're okay. And then the marbled paper. And just use whatever kind of pretty painty paper you can make. You don't have to have marbled paper. That's just what I have. And since these are going in the Defy auction, I want to put some pretty paper in it. So, but you can use whatever kind of painty papers you want to. And this one. And then this one. And I picked some coffee dyed papers that had some print on them. Obviously, you don't have to do that. You can just have plain old coffee dyed papers. And coffee dyeing papers is something almost everybody can do, so it's a fun way to make journals look more vintagey. Okay. So there's two. And these edges are not perfectly aligned. And I'm okay with that. I don't expect them to be perfectly aligned. If you do, then you could take them at this point and trim them to make them perfectly aligned. But as long as they fit inside the book, I'm okay with this. If it turns out they don't, I will trim it, because I don't want the, now there are books where I don't mind if it sticks out, but this isn't one of them. This isn't one of them. Okay, so there's this paper, and then the coffee dyed paper. And then that. And you don't have to make your signatures all with the same types of papers, or even put them in, the same types of papers in the same order. That's just how I choose to do it. That doesn't mean that's what has to happen. I love how dark the edge is on this one. And then this one. This is the onion skin dyed paper. There's three. One more. The other journal that I did not make them all in exactly the same kind of order. So I'll show you in a minute that the outside covers, for each signature are not all the same and all of that. So like I said, I'm making these journals different from each other, trying to make them different from each other, even though I'm using the same Digi Kit. I think this way I can show you more ideas. One thing you could do with these is you could ink all the edges, and I didn't, but you could if you wanted to, and you could do that right now before you put them in the book. It would be easier to ink them all right now rather than to ink them later. But make sure these are really as crimped down as I can get. So I can see how they're going to fit in the book. Okay, so here's our book, here's our pages, and you can see there's plenty of room in there. So they're not going to come out of the book, so I'm okay if they're not all exactly the same. And there's a little bit of room at the top and a little bit of room at the bottom, a little bit of room all the way around, just the way I like it. Okay, now then we're going to Next, we're going to sew the signatures into this. And I made this exactly the same height as my signatures. And I did that so that it would be easy to know where they go. So I've got those. Let me show you what I was going to show you about the signatures not all being the same in this one real quick. Okay, see, I started with the a double page on this one. And, oh, well, I did, this one's a double page, but the inside one is lined. This one is the plain paper on the back. I mean, it's like a faux coffee stain. It was printed, but it's not the print. So this one has the lined paper on the outside. There's another one with the double paper. So they're all pretty similar, but they're not exactly the same like I did these. Still looks pretty consistent though, and I like that. Okay. Now we've got 4 signatures, and we've got a spine of about 1.5 inches. So you can see how these can kind of separate out. That's what we want to do. So we're going to, and I'm going to go ahead and write top on the back here. So we got to make our holes now in this first, and then we'll make holes in these and sew them in. The first thing you're going to do, and I do have a centering ruler. If you don't have one, you don't have to use one. I just have one, and this is exactly 8 inches long, or almost exactly 8 inches long. So I can put my centering ruler at about 4 inches. It also has 1/4 inches and 1/8 inches. I don't know if you can see that, but each of these orange lines is 1/4 inch. Let me get some paper put behind it so you can see. Okay. Each of the long orange lines is 1/4 inch. In between them, there are these little bitty lines that are 1/8 inch. So you can measure them the same down to 1/8 inch. So what we want to do now is find the center. And here I've got 1, 2, 3/4 on that side. Okay, let's see how many quarters we've got all together, just to be certain. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 and a half. 5 and a half. So that is 11 eighths inches, I think. Let's see. So it's not quite 1 1/2. At 1 1/2, it would be 12 eighths would be 1 1/2, and it's not quite that big. So we just got to find the center and make a line. And so we know we want a little more than okay, let me think a minute. I'll be right back. I'm going to think a minute. Okay. 11/8 is not easy to center. So what we're going to do is we're going to go in 1 2/8 and a little bit. And the main thing is that we're pretty, it's pretty much the same all the way across. And that is kind of hard to see. So I'm going to move it here. Oops. Okay, let me do it again. Sorry. This is easier when you're not trying to record. Okay, there's 1, 2/8, and a little bit. Okay, and now I'm going to draw a line. And then I'm going to go up um, 1/4 of an inch. Let's do it this way. So this way I can put this on 1/4 of an inch all the way across. And do 1, and then 1/4 of an inch. Ah! Sorry. That didn't work out so well. This is real life, folks. I'm not a professional. All right, let's do it from this way. Maybe I can see better. Okay. That doesn't look like it was straight all the way across, so I'm trying to see. It wasn't. So we're going to redo this because we can. I would rather you watch me fix something and know how to fix it if the time comes than to think you're the only one who makes these mistakes, because you're not. Okay. So what I want, if this is okay, I think my board is not exactly the same. It's very close, but okay, that's the line I want to line it up with. Okay, now I'm going to turn it around and do the same thing so we know the outside ones are the same distance from the outside. Okay, so we've got those two, and then in between them, how far is it in between them? Okay, so I'm going to go in just a little bit more. Let's go from this side. I'm better from this side. Just a little bit more than 1/4 of an inch. And then I'm going to go from this side just a little bit less than about. I should have just stuck it 1/4 of an inch. Okay. Well, I hope you're being entertained by all my mistakes here. Because I think the 1/4 of an inch, by the time you draw your line, the 1/4 of an inch is pretty good. Unless your thing moves. All right. Then we're going to go ahead and go a 1/4 of an inch from here. Okay. So we've got 4 lines, and this one's not real easy to see, but we've got 2 here and 2 here. They're not exactly the same distance apart. I really wanted them to be, but they're just not going to be because it seems like no matter what I do, it's off just a tad. So we're going to let it be. So now then we want to decide where our holes are going to be. This one is a little bit shorter than the other one, and I really think 3 holes will be plenty. So that's what we're going to do. We're going to do 3. And so we're going to find a center here. And then we're going to make a line. And then from that center, we're going to go 2.5 inches here and 2.5 inches here. I want to make sure I'm getting this straight. So, okay. Now then, where each of these lines intersect is where I'm going to punch my holes. Now you can punch holes with an awl. I'm going to use this little bitty punch. It's a 1/16, I think, of an inch punch. See if it says on it somewhere. It doesn't say, but it makes very little holes. But you can poke these with a pokey tool. That'd be just fine. Now, I'm trying to find where I can see what I'm doing here. And you have to really try to center it on those lines, which okay, that's fairly good. I have to turn around. It won't reach that far. It's not a crocodile. Okay, so I've got my 4 lines right there, and they're fairly straight across. That's good, because it doesn't always work out that way. Sometimes I'm not as good. Okay, so far so good. It is easier to do this with a pokey tool, because you can see what you're doing better. So maybe that would have been a better plan. But once you start poking holes, you need to kind of stick with the same plan. Okay. So now then, you're going to find your center, and I'm going to turn these wrong side out and keep the top, and I'm going to do each one at a time and start from the back, because it's easier if you start from the back. Okay, for some reason those aren't looking lined up with each other. Oh, I was looking for holes that weren't even there. I forgot I'm only doing 3, not 5. Sorry about that. Okay. And then we want to put a little mark on it. Okay. Now we're going to turn it back around so that's in the center so you can punch your holes. Make sure I've got up. Okay. Now when you're punching a hole, there we go. A big dictionary works really good for this if you don't have a phone book. I used to use a phone book, but you know, phone books are practically dead now, so I decided this works good. And then I've got several pokey tools. I'm going to use this one. You want to make sure your papers are really tucked in to each other well, and in order to do this, I just go ahead and clamp them. Some people are pretty good at doing it without doing that, and they can keep everything together good without it, but I'm not one of those people. So, and you don't have to have clamps this big. I just have them. They work nice when you're doing a junk journal and you've got all different size papers in there, but a little bitty one would work fine for this because it's they're all the same size. But anyway, this is what I had handy. So, and then I'm going to go right in there and poke my hole right where I drew on it. I want to make sure which side's up. Okay, this is the up. And this is up. And so now I got to get a needle. Probably should have had that done in advance too, but I didn't. So, and then you need just something that's about, for this one I'm only going to need it about 2 times as big as my spine, because it's going to only be 3 holes and they're not going all the way to the edge. And we're not going to have any strings to dangle things on or anything, because we're going to hide them behind. So what I'm going to do is go in from this hole into this hole, and then I'm going to hold a bigger string than that. Just hold it about like this so that I can keep that string tight. And then I'm going to go out that hole and out this one and go back in here. And then I'll go back out through the center one. Okay. And then I'm going to come right back up here, and I'm just going to pull both of them snug so I can be sure it's snug in here. And then I'm going to tie them right up here. Well, you could tie them in between the two. It doesn't matter. They just need to be tied somewhere. But I always tie them at a hole because I think it does hold it snugger. And do that a couple of times. Now I'm using a waxed linen, and when you use a waxed linen, it stays put, you know, fairly good. So then I'm going to trim that off. And I've got my fourth signature in there. So let's go ahead and put string in my needle so it'll be ready next time. Okay. Then I'm going to take the third signature and I'm going to turn it wrong side out. Make sure I've got up. Okay. And there's up. And I'm going to line it up with those holes because you're not, or at least I'm not perfect. I go ahead and do each signature with its hole instead of doing them all from one set of holes, because the holes are not always exactly in exactly the same spot, so it works better to have them with the holes they're actually going in. That way you can keep it centered with the board, and it doesn't end up off a little bit because you measured it from a hole that was a little higher or a little lower. Okay. All right. Now we're going to put this in here, and we're going to pokey it. It would be fun to have one of those bookmaker's cradle things, but I don't have, and the big dictionary works just fine. Okay, and we're going to do the same thing we did last time. In there, then in here. Hold the thread out here, out there. Make sure you're going in and out the right holes, because sometimes you can cross over to a different line of holes real easy. I did that when I was doing the other book, and I didn't realize it till I had that signature almost completely sewn in, and I had to take it out and fix it because it won't work. It just won't work. Come out here. Oh, see, I did right there. Just okay. See, don't. That was not intentional. I did not intentionally show you what I was talking about, but it happened anyway. So, oh goodness gracious. Okay. Try again here. In through this hole. In through this hole. And now we're going to go back out. Back out here. And we're going to tie it right up here. If you don't use the waxed threads, and you can wax your own, whatever kind of thread you have. If you have a candle, you don't even have to have beeswax. You can just have a candle and you can wax your thread. But if the thread is waxed, when you tie that first knot, it will pretty much stay put in order for you to tie the second one. If you don't have thread or yarn that's waxed or string, you need to really hold that snug while you tie the second one. So it does make it easier to use the waxed threads. Okay. There's number 3. And let's go ahead and put string on our needle first. Okay. Now we're going to turn this around. And we're going to measure it with the third set of holes. And that was the top. Is this the top? Yes. Okay. So far, so good. So far, so good. Now we want to tuck these really tight together and clamp them. Like I said, you don't have to do that if you don't want to, but it makes things way easier for me. Okay. And now then, we're going to tuck it in the center. And poke our holes. Oops. Okay. And needle and thread. And we're going to go in through the third hole, or the second one, I guess, since we're starting from the back. And go out from the middle. And back in. Here. Now then, let's make sure that's there, because we don't want to lose it. We don't want to lose it. Let's make sure these are snug. Tie our knot. Tie it again. Okay. And there's our third signature. So far, so good. It really wants to poof. Okay. and then we're going to glue it in and we'll be done. And then next time, between now and next time, I'm going to be cutting out the pockets and things that are part of the digital kit, tags and pockets, and we'll be putting them in next time. I'll show them to you before we go, and then okay. Now we're going to line these up. Alrighty. Turn them back to the center. Make sure you got everything kind of tucked in place there. And okay. Here's the top. Here's the top. Oh, got to poke a hole. I was getting ahead of myself. Gotta poke a holes. Now then, we're going to start back here. It's the same every time. I don't guess I had to show you over and over, but if you're really new at this, sometimes it helps to see something several times. So. Okay. Another thing having the clamps on there does for me is if I have to set it down, I can keep the center of the center, and I don't have to worry about it coming apart or whatever. I just do what I need to do, and then I can go back to it. So that's nice too. Okay. You want to make sure it's snug inside. Snug on the outside. So pull this snug here. Okay. So here are our 4 signatures sewn in. These marbled papers make it puffier than it would be. See how wrinkled they are? And the dyed papers, they're just not as smooth. So they make a puffier journal, even with less pages. So you need to keep that in mind when you're building it. So when we put this in here, our journal is going to look like this. So there's plenty of room to add stuff in. And it will, if you keep it shut, it will get less like this over time. But at first, it's it just does that more. The papers will settle in. Okay, so now what we need to do is put glue on here and then glue it down. And you want to try to center it as best you can when you do it. So you can use whatever kind of glue you want. I'm sure like Aleene's tacky glue or Yes Paste. There are lots of things you can use. But I like to use the art glitter glue because I know it'll tack down quick and I won't have to hold it as long. And I'm going to use more glue for this than I did for the putting the papers down on the outside. You'll notice I'm putting thicker glue on here. And that's because we really want this to be absolutely secure. You're not, oh dear, oh, I need a new pen. Just bent that one. You're not going to be pulling up on this, but you'll be pulling on this a little bit. So you got to, okay. I want it centered from the top and the bottom as best I can, as well as from side to side. And the first thing I'm going to do is just push it down all the way up and down on the outside really good with my fingers and let that really catch well. And then I'm going to open it in the middle here, and I'm going to push down in the middle, and then right here, and right here. Then I'm going to go back to the sides, and I'm just pushing it down really well. And then I'm going to kind of take it right here and push down and bring up this side and bring up this side so that it's really down solid. And then I'm going to clamp it shut. Whoa. The other one wasn't this much of an angle, so it stayed on better. Okay, and then we're going to let it just sit there. Till it dries. This one's a little bit rounder in the back, so it's not wanting to stand up very good, but that's okay. And we're just going to let it dry like this for about 24 hours. Then we will come back and we'll make another video. Let me get the papers that go inside it to show you. Okay, we've got this page, and I've got it in several different papers. And then we've got, this is all part of the digital kit, this one, and then this one. And I've got that in several different papers. And, oh, that's just, oh, this is another one. See, these are not the same. So there's lots of tags. That's the same as these, just different papers. And then we've got these two pockets and this big pocket. And I've got those in several different kinds of paper. So I'm going to cut all these out and bring them back. Now the pockets, I'm not going to worry about backing with cardstock because I don't think they will need it. The tags, however, these might be okay on this paper, but this that's on this onion skin paper, those will have to be, and this is on coffee dyed paper. I just printed these off on the same kinds of paper I printed off all the other ones on. So I've got 4 different kinds, and that's the ones for this journal. And then I've got all the ones that Tammy printed off for me for the other journal, but it's the same ones, just whatever papers. So these are going to need to be put on cardstock, and I'm going to do that before I cut them out, because it will be way easier to just cut them once. So be sure you, if you do this, be sure you glue these down to your cardstock or your cardboard or whatever you're using to give them stiffness before you cut them out. So I think that's really important with these, and it's a good idea with these as well, because they're going to be well, you're just going to want them to be stiffer than just paper. So so all of these I'm going to back onto cardstock before I cut them out. These I'm just going to cut out like they are. I think a kind of vellum-y pocket might be interesting. So I'm not worried as much about the pockets being stiff, because they're going to be glued down and everything as these. I may wish that I had glued these onto something else. I don't know. We're going to do it this way, and we're going to see. And we'll find out if that was a good plan or not. So next time, we'll play with embellishments. Thank you, and I'm sorry this has been such a long video. If you've stuck with me this long, I'm very proud of you, and I thank you a lot. God bless you. Bye-bye.